Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation with our first slide, Electoral Politics. Today, we'll explore the fascinating world of elections, political strategies, and how politics shapes our society. We'll cover key concepts, historical insights, and current trends, so stay with me as we dive into this important topic. Let's get started. Let's continue with our discussion on elections, focusing now on the topic, Assembly election in Haryana, continued. In this part, we'll explore how elections are conducted in Haryana, highlighting the specific processes and features unique to this state. We'll look at the electoral constituencies, which are the geographic areas represented by elected officials, and understand how these divisions ensure fair representation. Next, we'll examine the voters list, which is crucial for identifying who is eligible to vote in Haryana. We'll also discuss the nomination of candidates, including the requirements and procedures candidates must follow to contest elections. Understanding these elements helps us appreciate the complexity and organization behind Haryana's elections, ensuring they are fair and transparent. This ties into our broader theme of understanding how democracy functions through elections and the importance of each step in maintaining electoral integrity. Today, let's talk about the Assembly election in Haryana in 1987. This was a significant event in the state's political history. Shohari Devi Lal, a prominent leader, led a movement called Nyaya Yudh, which means struggle for justice. This movement was focused on addressing the issues faced by farmers and small businessmen. Devi Lal also formed a new political party called Electoral, which became a major force in this election. During his campaign, he made a very important promise to the people. He said that if his party won the elections, his government would waive the loans of farmers and small businessmen. This promise resonated deeply with many voters because it addressed their financial struggles. It was a clear example of how leaders often connect their policies to the needs of the common people, especially during elections. This election was not just about winning votes. It was about representing the aspirations of ordinary citizens and their fight for justice. It highlights how political movements and promises can shape the course of a state's governance. Now, moving on to the Assembly election in Haryana, which is a continuation of our discussion. In this election, the Electoral and its partners achieved a significant victory, winning 76 out of the 90 seats in the state assembly. That's a substantial majority, and it shows how strong their support was at that time. The Electoral itself secured 60 seats, which clearly gave them the majority needed to form the government. On the other hand, the Congress Party faced a tough time, managing to win only 5 seats. This stark difference highlights the political shift happening in Haryana during this period. Following these results, the governor invited Devi Lal, the leader of the Electoral, to become the new chief minister. And as a result, Devi Lal's party governed Haryana for the next 4 years. This election was a pivotal moment, showcasing the rise of regional parties and the decline of traditional national parties in certain states. It also set the stage for the political developments we will explore further in this presentation. Now, let's think about why we actually need elections in the first place. Imagine trying to have everyone in a large community sit together every single day and make decisions. It's simply not feasible, right? No one has the time or the expertise to handle every matter that comes up. That's where elections come in. They allow us to choose representatives who can make informed decisions on our behalf. But then, the question is, how do we select these representatives? Should we base it on age and experience? That's an important consideration, because ideally, we want people who understand the community and are capable of making wise choices. This process helps us manage large communities efficiently, ensuring that decisions are made in a way that reflects the people's needs and interests. So, in essence, elections are a practical solution to the challenge of collective decision-making in big societies. So, why do we need elections? Well, they play a crucial role in our democracy. Through elections, we get to choose who will make the laws that govern us. It's our opportunity to decide who will form the government and take major decisions that affect our everyday lives. Additionally, elections help us select the political party whose policies will guide the government and influence lawmaking. Essentially, elections empower us to have a say in how our country is run, ensuring that the leaders and policies reflect the people's choices and needs. When we think about what makes an election democratic, the first thing to remember is that everyone should have the ability to choose. This means that each person gets one vote, and importantly, every vote should carry the same weight. Equality is key here. There also needs to be real options to choose from. It's not enough to just have votes. Candidates and political parties must be free to participate and contest in elections. They should offer genuine choices so voters can make informed decisions. Another important point is that these choices should be available regularly. Elections shouldn't be a one-time event, but a consistent process, allowing the people to express their preferences over time. And of course, the candidate who is preferred by the majority should be the one who wins. That's the essence of a democratic election, reflecting the true will of the people. Finally, elections must be conducted in a free and fair manner. That means voters should be able to choose as they truly wish, without intimidation, coercion, or unfair practices. When all these elements come together, we have a truly democratic process that upholds the principles of fairness, representation, and equality. Let's talk about the demerits of political competition first. One of the main issues is that it can create a sense of disunity and factionalism in every locality. Instead of working together for the common good, communities sometimes become divided along party lines. Additionally, parties and candidates often resort to dirty tricks to win elections, which can undermine the integrity of the process. This environment can discourage good people who genuinely want to serve the country from entering politics, because they might see it as a corrupt or unfair arena. On the other hand, there are some notable merits. In the long run, this system tends to work better. Ideally, all political leaders would truly understand what's best for the people and be motivated solely by a desire to serve. But in reality, like professionals in any field, politicians are often driven by the ambition to advance their careers. They may want to serve the public, but it's risky to rely only on their sense of duty, given the competitive nature of politics. It's also important to recognize that political parties and leaders frequently level allegations against one another, which can lead to a lot of accusations and mistrust. Some critics argue that this intense pressure to win elections hampers the ability to develop sensible, long-term policies, because the focus shifts to short-term gains or winning strategies rather than the country's future stability and development. So, while political competition can encourage accountability and vibrant debate, it also has significant downsides that can affect the unity and effectiveness of governance. So, when we think about ways to improve our political system, there are really two main approaches. The first is to focus on trying to improve the knowledge and character of our political leaders. Essentially, this means investing in education, ethics, and leadership training to make sure those in power are well-informed and morally upright. While this is a noble goal, it can be quite challenging to implement effectively and consistently. The second, and perhaps more practical approach, is to create a system that incentivizes good behavior and discourages bad behavior among leaders. Think of it like how a market works. Even if a shopkeeper is mainly interested in making a profit, they still need to provide good service to attract and keep customers. In the same way, if political leaders are rewarded for genuinely serving the people and face consequences for neglecting their duties, they'll be more likely to act in the public's best interest. This approach leverages the idea of incentives. If the system is designed well, it naturally encourages leaders to prioritize the needs of the people. So, linking rewards and punishments to performance can be a very effective way to improve governance, especially when changing individual character or knowledge is difficult. Ultimately, this connects to the broader theme that systems and structures often shape behavior more effectively than relying solely on individual virtue. Today, let's understand what our system of elections looks like. Typically, Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha, or assembly elections, are held every 5 years. These elections are scheduled so that all constituencies go to vote around the same time, either on the same day or within a few days of each other. We call this a general election. It's a big event that ensures the entire country or a state is represented at the same time. Now, there are also special elections called by-elections. These happen when a seat becomes vacant due to the death or resignation of a member. Instead of waiting for the next general election, a by-election is held just for that one specific constituency to fill the vacancy. This way, the representation remains complete and the democratic process continues smoothly. Understanding how these elections work helps us see how our democratic system stays active and responsive. It's all about ensuring that the voices of the people are heard and their representatives are chosen fairly. Now, let's take a closer look at our system of elections. First, we have the electoral constituencies, which are the specific areas or regions that each elects their representatives. These constituencies ensure that every part of the country has a voice in the electoral process. Next, we move to the nomination of candidates. This is where individuals who want to run for office submit their nominations, and it's a crucial step to ensure that only qualified candidates participate. Then we have the voters list, which is a compiled register of all eligible voters. This list helps us identify who can cast their vote and makes the process transparent. After that comes the election campaign, where candidates present their ideas and policies to the voters, aiming to gain support. Finally, we have polling and counting of votes, which is the actual voting process and the counting of ballots to determine the winners. Each of these steps plays an important role in maintaining a fair and democratic election system, connecting all parts of the process to ensure the voice of the people is heard. Let's talk about electoral constituencies. The country is divided into different areas specifically for election purposes. These areas are called electoral constituencies. Now, for Lok Sabha elections, which are the general elections for the national parliament, the country is divided into 543 constituencies. Each of these parliamentary constituencies is further divided into several assembly constituencies, which are used for state-level elections. Additionally, panchayat and municipal elections are held in smaller areas known as wards. Understanding these divisions helps us see how representation is organized across different levels of government, ensuring that every region has a voice in the democratic process. This division into constituencies is a key part of how our electoral system functions smoothly and fairly. Let's talk about reserved constituencies. The constitution makers were quite aware that in an open electoral competition, some weaker sections might not have a fair shot at getting elected. They might lack the necessary resources, education, or contacts that others have. This can create a big disadvantage for them. Additionally, influential and resourceful individuals or groups might use their power to prevent these weaker sections from winning elections. If that happens, our democracy becomes less representative and less democratic, because it doesn't truly reflect the diversity of our society. That's why the concept of reserved constituencies is so important. It helps ensure that everyone, regardless of their background, has a fair opportunity to be part of our democratic process. Now, let's look at some more details about reserved constituencies, which is a key part of ensuring fair representation. Some constituencies are specifically reserved for people from the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. In the Lok Sabha, the lower house of parliament, there are 84 seats reserved for scheduled castes and 47 for scheduled tribes, based on data as of January 26, 2019. This reservation system was introduced to give these historically marginalized groups a fair chance to participate in the electoral process. Over time, this concept of reservation has been extended beyond national level to district and local elections as well. At the rural level, in panchayat elections, and in urban local bodies like municipalities and corporations, seats are reserved for other backward classes, or OBC. And an important point to remember is that 1/3 of the seats in both rural and urban local bodies are reserved for women candidates. This approach helps promote inclusivity and gender equality in our political system, aligning with the broader theme of representation and social justice. Now that we've discussed how constituencies are decided, Let's move on to the next important step in the electoral process. Once the constituencies are finalized, the question becomes, who can vote and who cannot? In a democratic election, it's essential to have a clear list of eligible voters. This list is prepared well in advance of the election to ensure everything runs smoothly. The official name for this list is the electoral roll, but most people simply call it the voters list. This list is crucial because it helps us identify the voters who have the right to cast their vote. It ensures that everyone who is eligible gets a fair chance to participate in choosing their representatives. So, the voters list is a fundamental part of the democratic process, maintaining transparency and fairness in elections. Let's talk a bit more about the voters list and how it works. The principle of universal adult franchise is really about ensuring that every adult citizen has the right to vote without unnecessary restrictions. Of course, there are some exceptions, like certain criminals or individuals with unsound minds, who can be denied this right if necessary. As new people reach voting age, their names are added to the list. On the other hand, if someone moves away or sadly passes away, their name is removed from the list. This process helps keep the voters list accurate and up to date. Every 5 years, a complete revision of the list is carried out. This ensures that only eligible voters are included and that the list reflects the current population. Overall, this process helps maintain a fair and transparent voting system, which is essential for a healthy democracy. Now, moving on to slide 17, which continues our discussion on the voters list. In recent years, a new system called the Election Photo Identity Card, or EPIC, has been introduced. This card is designed to make the voting process more secure and transparent. Voters are now required to carry this EPIC when they go out to vote, ensuring that only the rightful voter casts their ballot. This helps prevent any impersonation or fraudulent voting. But it's important to remember that the EPIC isn't the only proof of identity you can use. Voters can also show other valid proofs, such as a ration card or a driving license, to verify their identity at the polling station. So the key takeaway here is that these measures are in place to protect the integrity of our elections, making sure that every vote truly counts. Now, let's talk about the nomination of candidates. Anyone who is eligible to vote can also become a candidate in elections. The key point here is that the main difference between voters and candidates is age. To be a candidate, you need to be at least 25 years old. There are also some restrictions, especially for individuals with criminal records, but these usually apply only in very extreme cases. Most importantly, political parties play a significant role in the nomination process. They nominate their candidates, who then get the party's symbol and support. This nomination process is often referred to as the party's ticket. So, to sum up, the process is open to voters who meet the age requirement, and parties help select candidates, giving them a strong backing in the election. This system connects to the larger theme of ensuring fair representation and allowing citizens to participate actively in democracy. Now, let's continue with the nomination process. When a candidate wants to stand for election, they need to fill out a nomination form. Along with that, they are required to provide a security deposit, which is a certain amount of money. This helps ensure that only serious candidates enter the race. Recently, there was an important direction from the Supreme Court that added more transparency to this process. Every candidate must now make a legal declaration, which includes some crucial details. First, they need to disclose any serious criminal cases that are currently pending against them. This is vital because it allows voters to be aware of any legal issues the candidate might have. Second, they must reveal details about their assets and liabilities, including those of their family members. This gives us an idea of their financial background and helps prevent corruption. Third, candidates are also required to share their educational qualifications. Importantly, all this information must be made public. This transparency is essential because it helps voters make informed decisions about who they want to elect, promoting honesty and accountability in our democratic process. When we talk about educational qualifications for candidates, It's important to remember that not all jobs require the same level of education. For example, being an MLA or an MP isn't just about having a degree. It's about understanding people's concerns and representing their interests effectively. These qualities are evaluated through elections by the voters themselves, who decide whether a candidate can fulfill that role every 5 years. It's also worth noting that if we try to make education the sole criterion, we're actually giving up the democratic right of many citizens to contest elections. Imagine if we made a graduate degree mandatory. More than 90% of our population would become ineligible to stand for office, which is clearly not practical or fair. So the key takeaway here is that what truly matters for public representatives is their ability to serve and connect with people, not just their academic qualifications. This idea ties into the overall theme of the presentation, which emphasizes the importance of qualities beyond formal education in leadership roles. All right, let's talk about election campaigns. This is a crucial time when people get the chance to choose their representatives, the government, and the policies they believe will best serve their community. During this period, which typically lasts about 2 weeks after the final list of candidates is announced, there's a lot happening. It's a busy time for candidates as they reach out to voters, trying to connect and persuade. Political leaders hold election meetings to present their ideas and rally support. Political parties work hard to mobilize their supporters and get them to the polls. You'll also notice that newspapers and television are filled with election-related stories, debates, and coverage. This entire process is vital because it allows citizens to make informed choices and participate actively in shaping their government. It's a dynamic period that highlights the importance of democratic engagement and the collective effort to decide our future. Let's take a look at some successful slogans that played a significant role in Indian political history. In 1971, the Congress Party, led by Indira Gandhi, adopted the slogan Garibai Hatao, which means remove poverty. This slogan was more than just words. It was a call to action aimed at addressing one of the most pressing issues faced by the country at that time. It resonated with the common people and helped galvanize support for the Congress during the Lok Sabha elections. Moving forward to the next election in 1977, we see a different approach. The Janata Party's slogan was Save Democracy. This was a powerful message reflecting the political climate of the time, especially after the emergency period when democratic freedoms were under threat. These slogans are great examples of how political messaging can be crafted to connect with people's aspirations and fears. They also highlight the importance of slogans in shaping electoral campaigns and, ultimately, influencing the course of the nation's political journey. Let's take a look at some successful slogans that continued to resonate with voters during that period. In 1977, the Left Front adopted the slogan, Land to the Tiller, for the West Bengal Assembly elections. This slogan was powerful because it directly addressed agrarian issues and promised to empower farmers by giving them ownership of the land they worked on. It really captured the essence of their political agenda and connected with the rural population. Moving on, in Andhra Pradesh, N.T. Rama Rao, the leader of the Telugu Desam Party, used the slogan, Protect the Self-Respect of the Telugus, during the 1983 Assembly elections. This slogan was about regional pride and dignity, emphasizing the importance of respecting and standing up for the Telugu people's identity and interests. Both slogans highlight how effective messaging often taps into core issues, whether land rights or regional pride, to rally support. These examples also show how slogans can become a crucial part of a campaign's overall strategy, connecting voters emotionally to the candidate's promises and ideals. Now, let's talk about election laws, which are crucial for ensuring free and fair elections. No party or candidate is allowed to bribe or threaten voters. This is a serious offense designed to protect the integrity of the democratic process. Similarly, using government resources for election campaigns is strictly prohibited because it can give an unfair advantage. Candidates and parties must also avoid appealing to voters based on caste or religion, as this can promote division and undermine social harmony. Additionally, there are spending limits to keep campaigns fair. For a Lok Sabha election, a candidate cannot spend more than 25 lakh rupees in a single constituency. For assembly elections, the cap is 10 lakh rupees. These rules help level the playing field so that no one has an overwhelming financial advantage. Overall, these laws are about maintaining transparency, fairness, and integrity in our elections, key pillars of a healthy democracy. Now, let's move on to the Model Code of Conduct. It's important to remember that no party or candidate is allowed to use places of worship for election propaganda. This helps maintain neutrality and respect religious sentiments. Additionally, government resources such as vehicles, aircraft, or officials must not be used for election activities. This ensures a level playing field and prevents misuse of public assets. Once elections are announced, there are specific restrictions on ministers. They should refrain from laying foundation stones for projects, making major policy decisions, or promising public facilities. This is to ensure that the election process remains fair and that no undue advantages are given to any candidate or party during the campaign period. Overall, these guidelines are designed to uphold integrity, fairness, and transparency throughout the election process, aligning with our broader goal of a clean and credible democracy. Now, let's talk about the final stage of an election, which is often called Election Day. On this day, every person whose name appears on the voters' list has the opportunity to go to a nearby polling booth. These booths are usually set up in familiar places like local schools or government offices to make it easy for voters to access them. When a voter arrives, the election officials first identify her, sometimes by checking her ID, and then they mark her finger to prevent multiple voting. After that, she is allowed to cast her vote. It's also important to note that each candidate is allowed to have an agent inside the polling booth. This agent's role is to observe and ensure that the voting process remains fair and transparent. The overall goal is to make sure every vote is counted correctly and that the election is conducted in a just manner. This process is a crucial part of democracy because it guarantees that every eligible voter has a fair chance to participate and that the integrity of the election is maintained. Earlier, voters used to stamp on the ballot paper to cast their votes. A ballot paper is basically a sheet of paper that lists the names of the contesting candidates, along with their party names and symbols. It was a simple, manual process. But today, things have become much more efficient with the introduction of electronic voting machines, or EVMs. These machines are designed to record votes quickly and accurately. When a voter approaches the EVM, they see the names of the candidates along with their party symbols displayed on the screen. All they need to do is press the button next to the name of their preferred candidate. This shift from manual stamping to electronic voting has made the process much faster, more transparent, and less prone to errors. It's a great example of how technology is improving our democratic process, making voting easier and more accessible for everyone. Once the polling is complete, all the electronic voting machines, or EVMs, are carefully sealed to ensure the integrity of the votes. These sealed EVMs are then transported to a secure location where they are stored safely until the counting day. A few days later, on a predetermined date, the process of counting begins. We open the EVMs from each constituency, and this is where the actual counting of votes takes place. It's important to note that during this process, the agents of all candidates are present. Their presence helps maintain transparency and fairness, ensuring that the counting is done properly. The key point here is that the candidate who receives the highest number of votes from a constituency is declared the winner. This methodical process guarantees that the election results are fair, transparent, and credible, which is vital for the trust in our democratic system. So, are the elections too expensive for our country? Let's look at some figures to understand the scale. In 2004, the government spent around 1,300 crores rupees just to conduct the Lok Sabha elections. But when you consider the total expenditure, covering government costs, political parties, and candidates, it added up to roughly 3,000 crores. That's a huge amount of money for just one election cycle. Now, compare that to some other major government projects. In 2005, the government decided to buy 6 nuclear submarines from France, each costing about 3,000 crores. That's a significant investment in defense. And then there was the Commonwealth Games hosted in Delhi in 2010, which had an estimated cost of over 10,000 crores. What these figures highlight is the enormous financial commitment our country makes for different events, whether it's elections, defense, or major sporting events. It raises an important question about whether these expenses are sustainable or if we should think about ways to make these processes more cost-effective. This ties into the overall theme of our presentation, how we can balance spending with the development needs of our nation. Now, let's talk about some of the unfair practices that can undermine the democratic nature of elections in India. One major issue is the inclusion of false names and the exclusion of genuine voters from the voters' list. This manipulation can distort the true will of the people. Additionally, we often see excessive use of money by rich candidates and large parties to influence voters or gain an unfair advantage. Rigging is another serious concern, involving fraud and malpractices that aim to increase a candidate's votes. For example, stuffing ballot boxes with votes from others, recording multiple votes by the same person, or bribing and coercing polling officers to favor a candidate. We also need to be aware of how the ruling party can misuse government facilities and officials to sway the election process. Moreover, voters can be intimidated on polling day, which discourages free and fair voting. These practices are significant because they threaten the integrity of our democratic system. Recognizing and addressing these unfair practices helps us understand the importance of fair elections and the need to safeguard the democratic process in India. Now, let's talk about the Independent Election Commission. In our country, elections are not managed by any political party or government body. Instead, they are conducted by a truly independent and powerful election commission. This body has a level of independence comparable to that of the judiciary, which means it can operate without undue influence. The Chief Election Commissioner, or CEC, is appointed by the President of India. However, once appointed, the CEC is not answerable to the President or the government. This is a crucial point because, even if the ruling party or the government disagrees with the decisions of the Election Commission, they find it nearly impossible to remove the CEC. This independence is vital for ensuring free, fair, and transparent elections, which are the cornerstone of our democracy. It highlights how the system is designed to protect electoral integrity from political interference. Now, let's talk about the Chief Election Commissioner of India. The Chief Election Commissioner, or CEC, is the head of the Election Commission of India, which is responsible for overseeing the entire electoral process in the country. This role is crucial because it ensures that elections are free, fair, and transparent. The CEC has the authority to make decisions on election dates, the delimitation of constituencies, and the enforcement of the Model Code of Conduct. Essentially, the CEC acts as the guardian of India's democratic process, making sure that every vote counts and that the elections reflect the true will of the people. This position underscores the importance of independent and impartial institutions in maintaining the integrity of our democracy, which ties back to the overall theme of strengthening democratic institutions in India. Now, let's look at the powers of the Election Commission. The EC is responsible for making decisions at every stage of the election process, starting right from announcing the elections to declaring the final results. It's their job to ensure everything runs smoothly and fairly. They also enforce the Code of Conduct, which is crucial for maintaining a level playing field. If any candidate or party violates these rules, the EC has the authority to take action against them. During the election period, the EC can also direct the government to follow specific guidelines. This helps prevent the misuse or excessive use of governmental power during such a sensitive time. Additionally, the EC can order the transfer of certain government officials if necessary to ensure a free and fair election process. Overall, these powers highlight how the Election Commission plays a vital role in safeguarding the integrity of our elections and ensuring they are conducted in a transparent and fair manner. Now, when officials are on election duty, they operate under the control of the Election Commission, not the government. This is a crucial point because it highlights the independence of the EC in ensuring free and fair elections. It's quite common nowadays for the Election Commission to actually reprimand the government or the administration if they notice lapses or irregularities. This shows the EC's authority and commitment to maintaining integrity in the electoral process. Additionally, if election officials believe that the polling process was not fair at certain booths or even across an entire constituency, they have the power to order a recall. This step is essential to uphold the fairness of the election, ensuring that every vote counts and that the process remains transparent and trustworthy. So, these powers of the Election Commission reinforce its role as an independent body that safeguards democratic principles by actively overseeing and, when necessary, correcting the election process. This connects to the overall theme of the presentation, which is about understanding how the EC functions as a pillar of democracy, ensuring that elections are conducted in a free, fair, and transparent manner. Let's talk about popular participation in elections. Typically, we measure how involved people are through voter turnout figures. Turnout essentially shows us the percentage of eligible voters who actually go out and cast their votes. Over the past 50 years, we've seen a decline in voter turnout in Europe and North America. But interestingly, in India, the trend is quite different. The turnout there has either stayed steady or even increased over time. Another important point is about who actually votes. In India, it's quite remarkable that the poor, illiterate, and underprivileged groups tend to vote in larger proportions compared to the richer and more privileged sections of society. This suggests a high level of engagement among marginalized groups, which is quite significant for understanding democratic participation. However, the situation is quite different in the United States. In the U.S., poorer communities, African Americans, and Hispanics tend to vote much less than wealthier individuals and white Americans. This discrepancy highlights ongoing issues of inequality and access that can affect how representative our democracies truly are. Connecting this to our overall theme, it's clear that voter participation isn't just about numbers. It reflects deeper social and economic factors that influence how different groups engage with democracy. Understanding these differences helps us work toward more inclusive and representative electoral processes. Now, let's talk about turnout. In India, common people place a lot of importance on elections. They believe that through voting, they can influence political parties to adopt policies and programs that benefit them. This sense of empowerment is a key reason why elections matter so much at the grassroots level. Over the years, we've also seen a growing interest among voters in election-related activities. People are becoming more aware, more engaged, and more eager to participate in the democratic process. This increasing interest reflects the strengthening of democracy in India and the importance people attach to having their voices heard. So overall, high voter turnout is a sign of a healthy democracy where people feel their participation can make a difference. Let's talk about the acceptance of election outcomes. In India, it's quite common for ruling parties to lose elections, both at the national and state levels. Actually, in 2 out of 3 elections over the past 15 years, the ruling party has ended up losing. Now, compare this to the U.S., where incumbents or sitting representatives very rarely lose re-election. It's a different ballgame altogether. In India, about half of the sitting members of parliament or state legislative assembly members face defeat in elections. Interestingly, candidates who are known to spend a lot of money trying to buy votes or those with criminal backgrounds often end up losing. This shows that voters are quite aware and sometimes even rejecting candidates with dubious records. Most importantly, despite some disputed elections, the general trend is that the defeated parties accept the results as the people's verdict. This acceptance of election outcomes is crucial because it sustains the legitimacy of the democratic process. It ties into the broader theme of how democratic institutions and electoral processes function to uphold stability and public trust. Now, let's talk about some of the challenges to ensuring free and fair elections. One key concept here is the idea of an equal playing field. This means that all parties and candidates should have the same opportunities to campaign and to appeal for votes. When everyone has an equal chance to present their ideas and reach voters, it helps maintain the integrity of the election process. However, in practice, achieving this level playing field can be quite challenging. Factors such as unequal access to media, resources, or even intimidation can tilt the playing field and undermine fairness. Addressing these challenges is essential because fair elections are the foundation of a healthy democracy. Only when all voices have a genuine chance to be heard can we truly trust the outcome of the election. Let's talk about some of the challenges in our electoral system. One key issue is that candidates and parties with a lot of money often enjoy a significant advantage. Even if they're not completely sure of winning, their financial resources give them a substantial edge over smaller parties and independents. This creates an uneven playing field, where the ability to spend more can influence voter perceptions and campaign reach. It's important to recognize that this imbalance can undermine the fairness of elections and the overall democratic process. So, addressing these disparities is crucial if we want to ensure a more equitable system for all candidates, regardless of their financial backing. Let's talk about some of the ongoing challenges to ensuring free and fair elections. One major issue is that candidates with criminal connections often have a significant advantage. They can push out legitimate contenders and even secure nominations from major political parties. This undermines the integrity of the electoral process. Additionally, political power is often concentrated within certain families. These families tend to dominate political parties, and as a result, electoral tickets are frequently handed out to relatives. This creates a kind of political nepotism that limits genuine competition. When you look at the broader picture, elections often end up offering very little real choice to ordinary citizens. This is because the two main parties are quite similar, both in their policies and how they operate in practice. So, voters may feel like they're choosing between different versions of the same thing. Finally, smaller parties and independent candidates face enormous challenges. They're at a distinct disadvantage compared to the bigger parties, which makes it harder for diverse voices and alternative ideas to gain traction. All of these factors together highlight why challenges to electoral fairness remain a serious concern in many contexts.